Today's podcast guest left a comment on our YouTube channel, which was so interesting that we asked them to come on the podcast and tell us more detail. And this podcast is going to be useful for everybody, but really just demonstrates the benefits of a succession of good financial decisions, having a good financial plan and good financial habits over a long period of time. So we talk about saving, investing, pensions, some career advice in there, which will be really useful to so many people. And we finish off with the most important topic of all by comparing Lego collections. So, really grateful to all of those of you that are watching our YouTube videos and leaving comments. It really helps us. And there is an open invitation if you want to come on the podcast or the YouTube to tell us what you've learned and help educate other doctors and healthcare professionals. Let us know in the comments and let's do it. But thanks so much to all of you that are watching, liking, sharing on our YouTube channel. And let's get into today's episode. It's my pleasure to welcome to today's Medics Money podcast, Dr. Sandip Patel, who, you kind of dragged yourself in here, Sandip, because you made some really nice comments on one of our YouTube videos. And we're going to get into that in a minute because I think you've got some great wisdom to share. And then you decided that you'd come on the podcast, which we're really grateful for because Medics Money has always been about doctors helping other doctors, talking about money, learning about money. And it's obvious that you have learned a lot about money. But before we get into that, just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do and where you are.
Yeah, so I'm a doctor living in the southeast. I'm now working in Slough, a place called Wexham Park. I trained at the Royal London, qualified in 1994, which is a long time ago. I'm 55. I'm a consultant in emergency medicine. I've been a consultant for almost 15 years.
You must have seen a lot of changes in that time.
Enormous change. It's really difficult to get your head around, how we work and really how we look at ourselves in terms of our earnings and what we do with it, really. So I think our perspective is, just to give you an example, I went to medical school for free. I got a grant. No tuition fees. I finished medical school with very little debt. And I could buy a house in London on a FY1 salary. So things have really changed for the doctors that are coming after me now. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Like I'm 15 years in, and already I recognize that the medical students of today have it way harder. The game has changed, and it's really important that we acknowledge that and try to help people to prepare for that, really, which this podcast definitely is, because I know that you're going to share some hard-won wisdom over those years of finances. But so you went to medical school. When did you start to get interested in your finances, and what was the trigger to get you into it?
Well, I think that, there's been a lot of mistakes along the way, but I still remember our first week as doctors and filling out all those forms that you do, with HR. And the first question was, do you want to be in a pension scheme? So at 24, 25 years of age, we don't really have much education in terms of money management. And you don't really make an informed decision, but it just seemed like the sensible thing to do. And then I got myself an independent financial advisor a couple of years later. And when I was thinking about buying a property, and it's probably one of the best decisions that I ever made.
Yeah, so that's what I call a 7-figure checkbox, which is a nice little innocent checkbox saying, do you want to join the pension? Yes or no? And you're young and just started, you're like, oh, a pension, that seems a long way off. But that is a 7-figure tick box, no doubt. And you tick the right box, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the beauty of it was once you sign up, you don't have to make that decision again unless you're actually trying to get out of it. So, and I think that this is a conversation I have with my residents, is that many of them are not even in the scheme for quite sad reasons, in that their finances are so tight. But it was probably the best decision that I ever made, which I'll go on further to explain why. But it was an incredibly, albeit in ignorance, really great decision.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that you had some good financial advice, and that was kind of what your YouTube comment was about, which was just kind of the benefit of good financial advice. But so you checked the right box, and then you mentioned that you got some financial advice quite early on in your career.
Yeah, so I think that quite a few of the sort of the little fairs that we had in the clubs union at medical school, there were already financial advisors floating around looking for clients, and I made a good decision to kind of sign up with one. And then not long afterwards, I was going to get a property and get on the property ladder. And I got used to at least listening to, I might not always follow the advice, but I certainly listened to it. And I made one or two very good decisions, which really paid off when I had some issues, many years later.
Yeah, definitely. So that sounds really powerful. And I guess, like, what were the main sort of learnings that you've taken from, which a career of kind of managing your money? And you said, like, making good decisions.
I think two things was that, once you were going to become a property owner, that along with that came enormous responsibility in that it's hard to explain to younger doctors, but for the first 3-4 years of my career, I lived rent-free in hospital accommodation. So we were very naive about, the real costs of owning a property. And then once you go on to get a property, you don't understand anything about life assurance or critical illness or income protection. You know nothing about it at all. You're dependent on an independent financial advisor to sit you down and explain what this is all about. I mean, we don't have endowment mortgages now, but I even took one of those out at the time. So we just didn't understand anything about it. So you're completely, we're very intelligent people. We know a lot about our own subject, of course we do, but we don't understand this finance, and you need a good financial professional to help you along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And because of that, we're in a good position to kind of, if we're given the right information, in my experience, doctors learn quite fast. So we just got to give them the right information. And that's what the podcast is all about. Awesome. And you sort of alluded to this a bit about the pension and stuff, but I think that you are making use of the pension flexibilities and things like that. You mentioned the 1995 scheme, which I'm jealous of because I missed the 1995 scheme by 2 months. Yeah.
Yes, I know. But I mean, I think that I've already met Graham from MedFinTech, and fortunately, I'm also the MSc chair. So I had him over to our trust to speak. It's probably the best attended MSc meeting there's ever been because I trailed his presence and quite a few consultants joined the meeting because I have to be honest, many consultants have zero clue about taxation or the pension scheme and the benefits of it. And it was really helpful getting advice. And I think that the recent pension change is a huge benefit because as a 55-year-old, I had no idea what it was worth until I got someone to look at it and then sit me down and explain, the cold, hard reality, or actually the really good news. So I think that websites like yours, your YouTube channel, are incredibly useful for healthcare professionals and doctors because when I speak to my colleagues, they're often very financially illiterate.
Yeah, and I think once upon a time, maybe that you would still be okay if you didn't do anything about your finances because the pension was more straightforward. We were paid, way more back in the day, than we are currently now, adjusted for inflation. And so you could probably maybe kind of be quite passive and not do anything. And the default option would be that you would definitely be okay. And that's great. But my kind of feeling is over the last 15 years or 10 years that if you do nothing and follow the default option now is to work harder for longer in more difficult conditions, and you may not be okay, whatever okay is.
Absolutely. I think that's the reality of retiring at 67 or 68 in a profession where burnout levels, especially in my specialty, are skyrocketing. Some of my consultant colleagues are in their late 30s, and when I tell them, listen, you've got 30 more years of this, at the moment, emergency departments are full to overflowing with people in corridors, and it's not a very pleasant work environment. And it isn't within the hospital either. And in general practice, my friends and colleagues in general practice have a really high workload and high levels of stress. So you need an exit plan. I love your video, your FU money, brilliant video. And I think it's so important that we get that information out there to our colleagues to say you need to have a plan and make every pound work for you.
We were so nervous about the thumbnail and the title of the FU money video. I mean, everyone can imagine what it stands for, but yeah, I'm glad that you liked it. Was the thumbnail okay?
Absolutely, it nailed it, bang on. I think that you're quite right. I think that when I qualified, the salary and was going up with inflation, and we all were retiring at 60, and you could all buy a house the minute you qualified. And the cold hard reality of my residents is they can't buy property for many years and their salaries absolutely plummeted. So I think that getting information early on in their careers, understanding how they can make their money work for them, and getting that bleep you money so they can not have to work until they're 67 and get out when they want to get out. At the time I'm going to get out, I'm going to get out in 5 years' time and I'll be 60, 61. So they need to have, my colleagues, that same freedom to do that. And they need to start early.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, especially in a high intensity specialty like you're in, I just couldn't imagine working till the state retirement age, which is what the 2015 scheme is linked to. Yeah, it just, and the feeling that what you would have of just being trapped when you're kind of done, but you've got another 7 years or more to go, it'd be awful.
It's horrendous. So I've been chatting to colleagues around hospital, so who are a little bit older than me, that want to come off the on-call rota and just kind of dial it back a little bit. But because of the realities of working in NHS, they're just not allowed to. So either you stay or you go, but people can't go yet because they're not financially set up to do so. And I do remember that first week as a doctor and looking at all these things, and it felt very recent. And suddenly I'm 55 and thinking about these things. And it doesn't seem that long ago, but it really was. So trying to explain to my 20-something-year-old colleagues that before you know it, you'll be thinking about these things and you're really regretting any mistakes you made, or really congratulating yourself if you've made some good decisions early on, like you did.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, something about starting early, or as early as possible. I think everybody wishes they'd started improving their finances earlier. I know I do, but it's never too late to start. And the reason why you need to start early is there's no magic quick get rich quick schemes here. But if you just do sensible, really simple financial planning, simple, nice financial habits over a prolonged period of time, you will be okay. But I think, as you say, like that, if you don't do anything, you could be trapped, which would be really terrible. And also, again, to your point that our younger resident colleagues are not in the pension, one of the commonest reasons that they tell us they're not in the pension, they understand the benefits, they just can't afford it. And it's terrible.
It's absolutely horrifying that it's relatively inexpensive at that stage of your career. But I'm in the BMA. I'm a BMA rep. I campaigned really hard for our residents and for my consultant colleagues. And one of the reasons was that my younger colleagues didn't have the financial freedoms I did 25, 30 years ago, because money is so tight and they're struggling with 80, 90, 100,000 pounds of debt, which they will have to pay off now because of the changes in the student loans. And I think that, I'm very proud that the BMA managed to get a better deal for our residents and consultants, because I think that the alternative was that people now think about leaving the country. I'm very disillusioned at the moment. So I think that having this information that people like you provide, the service that you provide, it was a revelation for me. I've had countless colleagues come up to me and thank me for introducing them to people like Graham and getting them involved. I've been posting links on our WhatsApp group to look at these videos, because I think that whilst you're very good at earning money, you could do more with it in terms of making a plan. So
yeah, you've worked incredibly hard for that money, so you might as well maximize the benefit for it, for you now and in the future. And, it just helps us at Medics Money so much, for people like you, just posting links to WhatsApp groups. It might feel like, how much does it help them to post it to 50 people in a WhatsApp? But the reality is Medics Money started so small, and we've only grown because of the people like you that support us. We don't have a big institution backing us. It's literally word of mouth. So anyone who's posting links to our content or any other content that you find useful that's helping your colleagues, thank you, because we've grown to be really big now and started to make the impacts that we wanted to make, and we always dreamed that we would make. But the reality is we will still rely on doctors to, like how you're coming on this podcast. It's 8:00 at night. We've both had a busy day, but we're just going the extra mile to help out. So we really appreciate it. And if you haven't posted anything to your WhatsApp groups, just post something useful. Awesome. And then can we just sort of get into the BMA? Like, how did you get into the BMA repping side of things?
So I think I've always been not afraid to speak my mind. And then one day my LNC chair came up and said, I think you'd be an ideal fit to be our BMA rep. So I've always been a member. I joined, I didn't actually join when I qualified. I actually joined after I got stiffed by my employer the hard way and suddenly realised I had no support. So I joined, and then about 4 or 5 years ago, my LNC chair said, "Look, I really think you'd be a perfect fit." So I made an inquiry. I got the post, and I did the training, and then I got very active during the run up to the disputes and organised a lot of meetings, met a lot of residents, came to the mess with pizza as you do, got involved, obviously hitting the picket line. And I think people like me who are approaching the last few years of their career, we want to leave the profession in a better place than when we found it. And the profession is in a very difficult place right now. People are very burnt out and disillusioned, working in very busy environments, out in the community like yourself, within hospitals. And I think that it's so important that as a BMA rep, I want to do the best for me and my colleagues to get a better deal and to get recognised by the government, because they are monopoly employers and they need to treat all healthcare professionals, not just myself. My wife works in the NHS as a radiographer. Falling pay is not just a reality for doctors, it's for other healthcare colleagues who are all totally reliant upon. So I'm very passionate about getting that message out there that we can bargain collectively. And then when we do get our pay sorted out, then to spend it wisely and make sure that you can get that bleep you money and leave on your own terms when you're ready.
Yeah, definitely. And again, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to step up and put your head above the parapet. So thanks for everything that the BMA do. And yeah, we've had Vivek and Rob and Emma on the podcast in the past when the junior doctor strike was on. And I believe the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Goldstone is coming on the podcast soon as well, which I'm actually a bit nervous about because there's so many questions I want to ask him. And I'm like, yeah, so yeah.
He's a scarily intelligent man. No one understands the pension better than he does. We've had a few kind of conversations on social media, and he's very indignant about what's been done to doctors in the last few years, especially with the annual allowance tax traps, and how I've got colleagues who have never done a minute's private work in their lives paying out 5-figure tax penalties, and he's very passionate about that. I know it's partially fixed, but there's a long way to go there. There's a lot more work to be done. So Tony is a big ally to doctors everywhere.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay. And what's kind of in your plans for the future? Because you said that you're going to be, did you say retiring in 5 years and working? What's been you've done all this financial planning.
Yeah.
You've been on it early doors. Give us the gold at the end of the rainbow, the jam tomorrow. Yeah. What's your plan?
Well, the plan is that, thanks to, ticking a couple of very important boxes when I took out my mortgage. So I've talked about this on my social media, that a few years ago, I got up for work as usual and then felt a bit dizzy getting ready, and unbeknownst to me, I had a stroke. So I ended up in an ambulance whizzing over to the local stroke unit and the local emergency department and being treated by my own friends and colleagues. So at which point my financial advisor got wind of this, rang me up and said, "Aren't you glad you ticked that critical illness box when we did your mortgage?" And I said, "What critical illness box?" Because I'd totally forgotten. So as you do, because if you've never had that money, you don't miss it. So I think early on, and it's quite cheap when you're young. So whilst I had a health calamity, I made a very good recovery, as you can see, and I went back to work full time. A few months later, it did remove that worry about how I would look after my family and provide for them, because I'd also ticked the income protection box. So I could take all the time I needed to get better. So that provided some financial security. I tried to do something sensible with it and make it work for me. And then with the new pension rules, I then realised that it made a lot of sense to take partial retirement around this time of my life. So I'll be taking it in 173 days. So thanks to some nice sums done by our friends at MedFinTech, I knew what it was worth. And our recent partial pay victory made that pension and that benefit much more valuable if you're in the 95 scheme. Sorry, Tommy. But I think for us older doctors, it was very good news. So I took full advantage, and then I think did some sums, and thanks to some good decisions way back when I had hair, I'll be able to hopefully check out at 60, 61 if I want to. If I'm enjoying life, then I'll carry on. But I'll have that freedom to bleep you to the chest and put my feet up. So do a bit of traveling.
Wow. First of all, so happy that you recovered what seems to be fully. So pleased to hear that. And yeah, I think as you say, these good financial choices have just given you choices and freedom, flexibility to do what you want. I'm so glad that you recovered fully. Presumably, as well, that means you've got more money to indulge what we've just found out is your other passion, which is Lego. Can we talk about Lego? Because I've been dying to have a Lego enthusiast on, and it's going to be like show and tell if you're on
Right.
YouTube. You go
So
first.
absolutely. So look, pretty much I'm a child of the 70s. Every kid had Lego and we played with Lego all day long. And then I discovered about 10, 15 years ago that you could get these elaborate sets. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. It's probably one of the first films I saw as a kid back in the 70s. Next thing you know, to my right is the Millennium Falcon. There's a big TIE fighter. There's a Death Star. There's
We
an
need to see
X-Wing.
it. We need to see it.
Well, because of this fake background, I can't really. I should have given you the plain background, but I've got a Death Star, which is about 3 foot high, sat on my top shelf, and I've got a land speeder and an X-wing being constructed. So it's one of my expensive hobbies that my poor wife has had to put up with for the last 10 odd years, because she actually pointed out, look, where are you going to put it all? So we're sitting in my man den, surrounded by electric guitars, Lego, and various man toys, which is one of the things that one uses with one's disposable income. So I think that I look forward to building more Lego with my spare time when I go part-time in August.
Yeah, I really want to see the Millennium Falcon, only for jealousy. But yeah, I am a child of the 80s, so my collection is nowhere near as impressive, but I am going to show you everyone because I've been desperate to show you everyone. So this one was like, this is a Lego Technique helicopter, and I think I got this. Yeah, I got this for my like 10th birthday or Christmas, and it was like my dream present. It was the only thing I wanted. And then obviously, that was a long time ago. I lost it, but you can buy it secondhand. I don't off like, oh, I forgot what it's called. Is it Brickland or something? You'll know better than I do.
There's some very healthy websites selling vintage Lego, and they're getting very rich by selling these back to people like yourself, nostalgia freaks, and that is gorgeous. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was only about £25, right? So it was cost effective, but then you can, and so the rotors spin manually with this kind of button, but you can get a motor to power the rotor. And so the helicopter was like £25, but the motor is super rare, and the motor's like 150. So you'll be relieved to hear that I don't have the motor, but my finger's been hovering over by. So that was kind of that one. And then the next one was kind of like therapy, right? Because I injured my hand really badly last year and I needed to relearn how to use it. So the way that I convinced my wife that this is therapy coming up. Look at that bad boy.
That is gorgeous. So look, we were all inspired by the space shuttle in the 70s and 80s. So yeah, that's a must purchase, I think. That is absolutely beautiful.
Definitely. It's Discovery. And it's actually got Hubble in it, which unfortunately I'm old enough to remember that when Hubble was launched, I vaguely remember it. And as you'll know, Hubble's got 30 years old now and is basically decommissioned and been replaced. So it's like, oh, one of those things where you realize. And check this out. The wheels come out. The wheels are up because obviously it's in space flight mode, but I press the button like that.
How cool is that?
It's very cool. Let me just put it down. Yeah, so not as good as your collection, but that was basically how I relearn to use my hand, because it is quite fiddly and like there's a lot of textures and dexterity involved. And so, yeah, I managed to convince my wife that was therapy and therefore the purchase price was necessary. But you did just talk about a little hack about Lego points. I love points and I love hacks.
100%. Now I'm into collecting points and loyalty points because one of my passions is Lego and the other one is travel. So I'll be looking into that as well. So value for money always.
Definitely. Okay. Well, we're so grateful for you to share in like your words of wisdom, and hopefully that's going to help so many doctors. Any kind of final parting words of wisdoms, reflections on decisions and anything really?
Look, I think the guy washing my car said, what would you tell your younger self the other day? I'd probably tell my younger self that you might be quite good and clever about your own topic, but you know nothing about money. So take expert advice early, stick to it. Don't get credit card debt, because that all caused me a lot of grief when I was a young man. It's a road to ruin. And start investing really early, the minute, even if it's 25 quid a month, it's 25 quid a month, because compounding over the decades will make you a very comfortably off person down the line.
Amazing words of wisdom, like great way to round out the podcast. Thank you so much for your time today, Sandip. It was really good to sort of put a face to YouTube. And yeah, I guess it's a warning, like don't leave comments on our YouTube channel if you don't want to get invited on the podcast. But, there's an open invite to this podcast because everybody can always learn from, and it's just great to learn from others. And I know that will be so useful to loads of people. So thanks so much and good luck with is it the X-Wing that you're building?
Yeah, I'm halfway through the X-Wing, which is really fiddly. And I've got a land speeder to do after that. But I actually don't know where to put it because I haven't got an actual spare flat surface to put it. So I'm a little bit stuck at the moment. Once I finish it, where am I going to put it? I just don't know.
I love it. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Sandip. Great to meet you as well.
And you, Tony, thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be on your show, on your channel, I should say.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the awesome background that you're displaying as well.
Cool.
Take care.
And you.